There's a truth that won't be printed in motivational books, a truth the loud ones avoid because it calls for more than just belief. It demands protection. And it is this: the moment you expose your inner world, your hopes, your unfinished plans, your deep fears, to a world that is neither gentle nor patient, you invite resistance. You open the gates to energy that is not always rooting for you. This world is not a sanctuary for the unguarded. It is a battlefield, and only those who move with intentional silence will rise above the noise. You see, real power doesn't scream for validation. It doesn't announce itself with flair. It simmers, quietly, deliberately, inside a mind that's been fortified against interference. A man who speaks too soon about what he's building, before he's built the resolve to defend it, is handing the world a blueprint to sabotage. We are taught to express, to open up, to share. But not everything sacred must be seen. Not everything powerful should be spoken. Your vision, until it is matured, until it can walk without limping, belongs to your silence. Because words are not neutral. They carry risk. Each time you explain yourself, you give others a doorway to doubt you. Every time you share too much, you allow fear and skepticism to seep in. Not always from enemies, sometimes from the mouths of those you love, who simply don't carry your fire. And when your fire is small, it doesn't take much wind to blow it out. Understand this: greatness is not validated by noise. It is built in the hours where no one claps. It is shaped by those who are more obsessed with the structure of their focus than the applause of their audience. And when you protect that, when you move without explaining, when you speak only when the foundation is ready, then you begin to walk with true strength. The kind of strength that doesn't ask permission, the kind that doesn't explain. It just works. It just builds. It just wins. Napoleon Hill, one of the few men in history who truly understood the mind as a battlefield, once said, "Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it." He knew the power of silence, backed by relentless preparation. And so must you. Speak less, move sharper, shield your vision until it's unshakable. Because nothing destroys fragile greatness faster than careless exposure, and nothing builds legacy faster than a protected mind. Now let's go deeper, into the discipline of guarding your power, and into the silent strategies that separate those who break under scrutiny from those who thrive in it. There's a dangerous misconception many carry without knowing it, the belief that we owe the world a full view of our plans, that somehow our intentions require exposure in order to be real. But the truth is, you don't owe the world your plans. You don't owe anyone your blueprints until they've been fortified. The moment you speak a goal aloud, before it's rooted in discipline and shielded by inner strength, you allow winds of doubt to sweep through it. Not all who hear you want to see you rise. Some will wear a smile, but carry seeds of fear, jealousy, or control. And with their questions, their tone, their silence, they'll begin to chip away at your resolve. Not because they're evil, often because they are small. And when small minds hear a big dream, they respond not with encouragement, but with erosion. They don't mean to break you. But if your plan is still tender, still forming, still vulnerable to approval, their doubt becomes your doubt. Your vision weakens, not because you were wrong, but because you handed the world a half-built bridge and asked them to cross it. A plan must be protected, not spoken, not tweeted, not paraded, but protected, guarded like fire in the wind. You feed it in the quiet, you grow it in the dark, and when it burns strong enough to light the sky on its own, only then does it belong to the world, because until then, it is not power, it is potential. And potential, when left exposed too early, is a flame easily put out. That is where the discipline of silence comes in, not as avoidance, but as strategy. And that brings us to a truth misunderstood by many. Not all silence is weakness. In a culture obsessed with instant expression and performance, silence is often mistaken for fear. But there is a kind of silence that is sacred, strategic. That is the silence of the builder, the warrior, the wise. It's the silence of those who have nothing to prove, only something to finish. The man who moves without needing to be seen is not hiding. He is preparing. And when you understand that, you start seeing the world differently. You start noticing that the loudest voices often carry the lightest weight. You begin to respect the man in the corner who says little, who watches more than he speaks, who holds his power behind his eyes rather than spilling it from his mouth. He is not absent. He is ascending. You learn to wait with power, to speak only when your words have force, to move only when the step is certain. And in that kind of restraint, in that unshaken stillness, you begin to understand that timing is power. To be early is to bleed. To be rushed is to stumble. But to be still until the moment is ripe, that is how you strike with precision. The oak does not break ground in spring and bear fruit the same week. It spends years building roots in silence. And so must you, because silence is not an empty space. It is where strength sharpens. It is the chamber where purpose solidifies. And in a world addicted to noise, silence is not just strength, it is rebellion. The kind of rebellion that builds kings, not clowns. And as you learn to wait with power, you begin to break free from the next trap, the need to be seen. Because one of the most subtle and dangerous traps we fall into is the craving for validation, the need to be noticed, liked, applauded. It seems harmless at first, natural even. But when your self-worth becomes dependent on external approval, you've handed the keys of your peace to someone else. Validation is a trap because it disguises itself as encouragement. But it's not encouragement. Encouragement can be received. Validation must be chased. And anything you have to chase will eventually own you. The applause will train your mind to perform, not to build. It will train you to adapt to opinions rather than stick to vision. Slowly, you will shape your actions not around truth, but around what gets you the most nods. You'll start speaking not from conviction, but from anticipation, hoping for reaction, hoping for love, and before long, you will no longer be building a dream. You will be performing a character, a deluded, distracted version of yourself who needs the next shear to stay upright. That's how greatness dies, not with a bang, but with a compromise. When you depend on validation to feel strong, anyone who withholds it becomes your master. And you were not built to serve approval. You were built to move with truth. You were built to lead with vision. You were built to carry power that cannot be swayed by clapping hands or disapproving eyes. So today, step back from the applause. Let the cheers fade, let the stage empty, and return to your silence, to the solitude where your vision was first born. Because the man who does not need to be seen, the man who does not beg to be approved, that is the man the world will eventually follow. Not because he asked for it, but because he no longer needs it. If your mind is not fortified, your words will betray you. Long before the world can test you, your own thoughts will. That's the battlefield most people never prepare for. They think strength is about having a plan, about speaking with conviction. But conviction without preparation is a gamble. The mind must become a fortress, built brick by brick, in silence, until no wind of opinion or wave of rejection can tear it down. You cannot speak powerfully if your thoughts are scattered, reactive, or wounded. The strength of your words is only ever as deep as the strength of your thoughts, and thoughts left untrained will crumble when pressure comes. So you must go inward first. You must sharpen your mind like a blade, harden it with truth, and temper it with discipline. Only then can it withstand the friction of criticism and the fire of public life. What you speak before your spirit is ready will expose more than it empowers. And the world, sharp as it is, will see the weakness between your syllables. That is why the wise man prepares in silence. He trains his thoughts to obey, so when his words finally arrive, they are not pleas for acceptance. They are declarations of intent. Until your mind is ready, speak little. Train much, because the untrained mind is not just vulnerable, it's dangerous. Dangerous to your own mission, dangerous to your legacy. So let silence be your proving ground. Let solitude be your whetstone. Fortify your mind before you open your mouth, because once a word leaves your lips, it cannot be pulled back. And if that word was born from doubt, it will live to haunt you. And once the mind is trained, the next demand is stewardship. Because what you carry inside you, your dream, your vision, your calling, is not just an idea, it is treasure. And like all treasure, it attracts thieves. The mistake people make is assuming everyone will see their dream the same way they do. But not everyone has your sight, Not everyone understands the weight of what you carry. When you hand your dream to someone who doesn't value it, they won't guard it. They won't protect it. They might not even mean harm, but they'll drop it, question it, dilute it. And a diluted dream is harder to resurrect than a dead one. So guard your vision like you would guard your most sacred inheritance. Speak it only where it can be watered, not where it will be trampled. Choose your counsel like you choose your shield, strong, loyal, and rare, because even those closest to you might not be equipped to carry what you've been given. You must protect it until it can protect itself, until it has grown roots strong enough to anchor in the wind and fruit heavy enough to speak for itself. Let your results reveal your vision, not your desperation to be understood, and let your work be the proof that the treasure was always worth it. In a world obsessed with quick validation, be the one who builds slowly, privately, but powerfully. That's not secrecy, that's stewardship. Because when you fail to protect your vision, when you expose your weakness too early, it's not just your idea that suffers. It's your power. Weakness exposed is power surrendered. And in this world, power is not something easily regained. The enemy doesn't always need to attack. Sometimes they just wait for you to talk too much, for you to reveal what hurts you, for you to confess your fear before you've conquered it. That's all it takes, a loose word, a moment of vulnerability without discretion, and what should have been your advantage becomes your downfall. Strength is not about never being weak. It's about knowing where to bleed, and more importantly, where not to. You don't need to lie. You don't need to wear a mask. But you do need to discern the difference between intimacy and exposure, between strategic transparency and self-sabotage. Not everyone who listens is your ally. Not everyone who smiles is your friend. And not every question deserves an answer. The untrained spirit will feel pressure to explain, but the disciplined soul knows some things are sacred, some wounds are still healing, and some truths must be guarded until they've matured into wisdom. So don't offer your scars to those who only want to see you bleed. Don't hand over your doubt like a gift to people who wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. Silence, when mastered, is not concealment. It is protection. And in protecting what's sacred, you preserve your power. Not forever, just long enough, until your strength speaks for you, and your silence becomes a sign not of fear, but of mastery. You were given a mind not to mimic the noise of the world, but to create clarity within it. Napoleon Hill once said, "You have a brain and a mind of your own. Use it." That line, as simple as it may sound, is not a suggestion, it's a call to arms. A charge to take back ownership over what so many have surrendered without a fight, their independent thought. Because in a world addicted to opinions, addicted to updates, addicted to external affirmation, the rarest form of strength is silence born from clarity. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of a mind so fully convinced of its path that it no longer seeks permission to walk it. Strategic silence isn't hiding. It's choosing not to waste breath explaining a vision that hasn't fully rooted yet. It's saying, "I trust my direction enough to move forward even when no one claps." The one who uses their mind is not the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one who guards their inner world with the kind of fierce sovereignty that refuses to let doubt, noise, or confusion invade. You must train your mind to stand alone, to not crumble in the silence of misunderstanding or the cold of solitude. Because independent thinking is not glamorous. It's quiet, it's heavy. It often comes with long nights of uncertainty, but it also produces the kind of depth, the kind of discipline, the kind of discernment that separates leaders from echo chambers. So build your thinking, build it like a shelter, make it yours, because no matter how loud the world becomes, if your mind is your own, your path will always be clear. And paths built with that kind of clarity are never paved in the spotlight. They are carved in shadows. They are constructed in quiet hours when the rest of the world is asleep or distracted. Build in the dark, not because you're afraid to be seen, but because you're wise enough to know that what's still forming must be shielded. The greatest temples were not built under applause. They were built under pressure, in places where only discipline could hear the hammer and chisel. Do not mistake visibility for value. There is a kind of progress that only happens when no one is watching, a kind of mastery that only grows when no one is clapping. The modern world says post every step, share every plan, explain every move. But the old world, the one that forged empires, carved leaders, built legacies, whispers a different truth. Grow in silence. Move in purpose. Speak only when the foundation is too solid to shake. In the darkness of solitude, the mind is tested and the soul is refined. There, in the absence of praise, you learn to become your own source of conviction. No feedback, no likes, no validation. Just you, the work, and the weight of what you're building. And in that crucible, greatness takes form. Not for the world to see just yet, but for you to become. Because if you cannot build in the absence of attention, you will never stand in the presence of it. So build now, quietly, steadily, with hands of resolve and eyes fixed on a vision no one else needs to understand. Not yet. And when the time finally comes, when what you've built begins to take shape, you won't have to explain. People don't need to know. They need to see. See the fruit, not the seed. See the results, not the rehearsals. That's when silence becomes its own thunder. That's when what was hidden speaks louder than what was ever said. Because there comes a point when explanation is a waste of energy. When defending your choices is a distraction from living them. There is a moment in every journey when words shrink and presence takes over. Let people guess. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. Your job is not to satisfy their curiosity. It's to complete your assignment. Those who are watching closely will learn. Those who aren't ready never would have understood you anyway. Let your discipline be louder than your declarations. Let your results do the talking. The loudest voice in the room is not the one making noise. It's the one walking forward while others are still asking questions. There is dignity in that. There is strength in that. And most of all, there is clarity in that. So stop trying to convince. Stop trying to justify. You owe no one a roadmap. Just show them the mountain when you've climbed it. Just show them the fruit when it's ripe. Because when your work speaks, even your enemies will have no words left. And that is when your silence becomes your legacy. That is when your calm becomes your crown. That is when they finally see what they never had to be told. When your actions reach a certain altitude, your silence begins to echo. There's no need to announce the sunrise. It arrives and the world sees it. That's how your results must be. Loud enough to hush every doubt, clear enough to need no commentary, and enduring enough that even your silence becomes a kind of thunder. Because real growth speaks for itself. It leaves traces, shifts atmospheres, opens doors. When your results become undeniable, you don't need to raise your voice. You simply show up, and the work you've done enters the room before you. That's why the greatest leaders don't argue. They produce. They don't campaign for attention. They command it through consistency. You don't need to prove yourself with words when your life becomes proof. The time to speak is not when you're still trying to convince others to believe in you. It's when what you've built is too powerful to ignore. Don't announce your process. Announce your progress. Quietly, steadily, boldly. And when they ask how, let your scars do the storytelling, your excellence do the explaining. Because once your results start speaking, even your silence will be respected. But here's the danger. That silence, that power, that weight, it can all be unraveled by carelessness of speech. Loose lips don't just sink ships, they shatter futures. Every word spoken out of turn, every idea leaked to ears that cannot carry it, every moment of undisciplined sharing, these are the small cracks that eventually collapse great dreams. Many have destroyed their own trajectory not because they weren't gifted, but because they were too quick to speak. They revealed plans that weren't ready, exposed convictions that were still fragile, trusted voices that had no loyalty to their vision. Not every thought is ready to be heard. Not every dream is safe outside the walls of discipline. There's a reason temples are built behind scaffolding, protection until completion. You must understand timing is sacred, and premature speech is a betrayal of that sacredness. Speaking too soon hands your vision to critics who will dissect it before it's strong enough to stand. Some things must be guarded until they can protect themselves. Speak only when your foundation is unshakable, when your roots run deep enough that no wind of opinion can move you. Until then, protect your words like currency, because the future depends on it. And if you're climbing, if you've found your rhythm, if momentum has finally arrived, then above all, protect it. Momentum is fragile. It's earned slowly and lost in seconds. One argument, one distraction, one unwise conversation can derail weeks of focus. You cannot afford to stop and explain yourself to every skeptic on the road. Not when the summit still lies ahead. When you're climbing a mountain, you don't pause to argue with someone standing at the base throwing rocks. You press on. You keep moving. Because pausing to defend your path to someone who was never meant to walk it with you is not humility, it's sabotage. Energy is limited. Vision is sacred. Don't drain it proving things to people who wouldn't understand even if you explained it 10 times. Some people are not interested in understanding. They are interested in distraction. Learn to spot the difference. The wise do not engage in battles that add no value. They protect their stride. They preserve their fire. They rise above. Momentum must be guarded like treasure. Let your progress be your response. Let your elevation be your answer. And let your silence be the shield that keeps your mission intact. Because once you lose your focus, it takes twice the effort to regain it. Don't trade progress for pride. Don't trade ascent for applause. And don't stop your climb to wrestle with noise. Keep rising. Keep building. Keep moving. Because the higher you go, the less you owe anyone an explanation. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Napoleon Hill didn't write those words to be poetic. He wrote them to prepare the soul for war. Because adversity does not train your hands to wave. It trains your hands to build. It doesn't refine your words. It refines your restraint. The storms that shake your world aren't meant to make you louder. They're meant to make you deeper. Adversity is not an invitation to speak more. It is a call to become more. It breaks what is weak, but it also hardens what is strong. And the truth is, no one becomes unshakable by talking their way through chaos. You become unshakable by standing still in it. Let the winds howl, let the critics scream, let the disappointments pile at your feet. If you can hold your center in the storm, that is where power is born. It is not in your response that strength is measured. It is in your ability to remain unmoved. Because when you can walk through pain without narrating every ache, when you can endure the season without complaining about the weather, when you can remain focused while everything tries to distract you, that's when adversity hands you its seed. Not of defeat, but of something far greater. And when you plant that seed in silence, when you water it with discipline and guard it with restraint, it grows. And the fruit it bears, that's called peace. That's called clarity. That's called authority. But there's a reason why so few harvest it, because so few trust it. Most people don't understand what you're building, and they're not supposed to. It wasn't given to them, it was given to you. That dream, that vision, that fire that keeps you awake at night. It was planted in your soul for a reason. So stop waiting for others to see it clearly. They can't. They haven't seen what you've seen. They haven't heard what you've heard in the stillness of your own spirit. And they won't understand why you move the way you do, why you withdraw when others celebrate, why you speak less and act more, why you guard your time, your plans, your spirit like treasure. The truth is, builders are often misunderstood, especially when the foundation is still invisible. You don't owe them the blueprint. You don't owe them updates. You don't need them to cheer while you dig. Let them question. Let them doubt. Let them watch from a distance. Because one day, the very thing they couldn't comprehend will stand tall as proof, not of your noise, but of your discipline. Not of your explanations, but of your persistence. The longer you wait for them to see what you see, the longer you'll delay what you're meant to build. So stop explaining the frame while the bricks are still being laid. Build. In silence. In strategy. In strength. Because once it stands, no one will question it again. And here is the deeper truth. The more you guard something, the more it grows. Just like a flame needs shelter from the wind before it becomes a fire, your energy needs boundaries before it becomes power. There is strength in preservation. There is progress in discipline. You don't need to burn yourself out to prove your brightness. You need to protect your light so it can last through the night. We often think that giving everything is noble, but wisdom knows when to give and when to conserve. The strongest warriors are not the loudest in battle. They are the most measured. They know when to strike when to rest, and when to retreat, not out of fear, but out of mastery. Guarding your energy is not weakness, it's wisdom. You are not endless. Your clarity, your peace, your creativity, they all have limits, and if you do not guard them, others will spend them for you. Protecting your momentum doesn't mean you stop loving people. It means you stop bleeding for those who would never stop your wound. It means you learn the power of pause, the worth of distance, and the irreplaceable value of your own fuel. Because where there is restraint, there is strength. Where there is discipline, there is growth. And where there is a guarded heart, there is an unstoppable future. Guard what matters. Grow what's yours. And don't apologize for the silence it takes to get there. The world may seem to reward those who shout the loudest, who post every step, who share every plan. But history, if you read it closely, belongs to the reserved, the ones who knew when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. The leaders who spoke few words, but each one struck with the weight of 10,000. The visionaries who stayed silent until the foundations of their work were too strong to be shaken. The warriors who stood still while the enemy shouted, conserving their strength for when it mattered most. Silence isn't weakness, it is timing. It is wisdom, it is power that knows how to wait. Look back at every true leader who changed the course of history. You will not find many who scattered their thoughts without filter, who gave the world full access to their mind and heart before the mission was ready. No, you will find those who learned the art of restraint. They understood the value of not just speaking right, but speaking at the right time, because words spoken too soon can destroy momentum. Vision shared too early invites sabotage. Confidence displayed without discipline becomes arrogance. But when silence is chosen from strength, not fear, it becomes strategy. It becomes armor. It becomes influence that does not beg for attention, but commands it when the time is right. And that mastery doesn't begin in public. It begins deep within. Napoleon Hill said, "Self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts." Let that settle into you for a moment. Because everything you build, everything you fight for, everything you become, it begins not with action, not with expression, but with what you do inside your own mind. The thoughts you allow, the emotions you choose to feed, the words you decide to speak or withhold, they are all rooted in how well you've trained the battlefield of your inner world. If your thoughts are chaotic, your words will be scattered. If your mind is undisciplined, your emotions will lead. And if your emotions lead, you'll lose ground long before you even step into the fight. Mastering your thoughts isn't about suppressing them. It's about governing them. It's about knowing when to turn up the volume and when to hold the line. In stillness. If you do not first lead yourself internally, you will be led externally, by pressure, by expectation, by fear. So pause, reflect, train. Be slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to listen, quick to observe. Because every unspoken thought is a stored weapon, and every unshouted emotion is a conserved fire. The mind must be trained not just for intelligence, but for restraint. Not just to plan, but to protect. When you begin there, you won't need to declare your power. It will speak for itself. And that brings us to something few are ever taught in a world obsessed with exposure. You are not obligated to share. Not everything you feel needs to be voiced. Not every idea you have needs to be validated. Not every wound needs to be posted. Not every dream needs to be announced. You are not a public event. You are a sacred process. And you don't owe the world a seat in your private evolution. Your growth is yours. Your peace is yours. Your discipline, your pain, your breakthroughs. None of it requires applause to be real. You don't need their permission. You don't need their understanding. You don't need their encouragement to continue. Because when you anchor your identity in quiet strength, their noise can't unseat you. Let others seek attention, you seek alignment. Let others chase visibility, you chase vision. Your life is not a campaign, it's a calling. And not everyone gets a front row seat. Some will question why you've changed. why you've grown distant, why you no longer reveal everything. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them create stories. Meanwhile, you stay steady. You stay hidden in the work, because what you are building is too sacred to be dissected by those who weren't called to carry it. The world might demand to know your every move, but you owe it nothing. Not your plans, not your process, not your pain. You only owe it your results. And when those come, they'll speak for everything you never said. So walk forward, guard your silence, and let your discipline become your legacy. When the foundation beneath your life is finally unshakable, you don't need to raise your voice to prove your worth. You don't need to explain your journey to every skeptic or outline your plans to every passerby. Because when the roots go deep enough, the tree does not tremble with every breeze. And when you've built in silence, when you've carved your discipline through storms, when you've endured and refined, when you've protected the vision with sacred patience, there comes a time when presence itself becomes proof. You walk into a room, and people feel the steadiness before you speak. You enter a space, and your eyes carry more conviction than any speech could. This is the difference between those who rush to be seen and those who become undeniable. The ones who speak only after their work is spoken. The ones who don't seek validation because they've already validated themselves in the unseen hours. It's not about arrogance. It's about certainty. The kind that is born in solitude, shaped through consistency, and revealed only when it no longer needs explanation. The work becomes visible, the results undeniable, and you don't have to defend it. You just have to be it. Speak only when your silence has finished building the evidence. Until then, build. Let your stillness roar louder than their noise. Because if your foundation is still shaking, your words will be fragile. But when it is solid, when it is deeply anchored, then your voice carries not noise, but weight. And that's the difference between a man who reacts and a man who reigns. And so, as we near the end of this journey, let me say what few dare to say in this age of noise and attention-seeking. The quiet ones always win. The ones who don't shout for recognition, who don't move to be seen, who don't perform for applause, they are the ones still standing when the storm ends. They are the ones still focused when the crowd disperses. They are the ones whose actions whisper in decades what others tried to scream in seconds. Because the quiet ones don't burn out, they burn deep. They don't chase praise, they chase purpose. And when others are exhausted from trying to be everything to everyone, they are still moving, still building, still rooted in why they started. In the end, the world doesn't remember who posted the most, who talked the loudest, or who craved the spotlight the hardest. It remembers those who changed something, those whose legacy didn't need marketing because it carried substance, those who stayed focused long after the noise died down. You see, storms will come, critics will rise, doubts will surface, but the quiet ones, the disciplined, the focused, the unshaken, they keep building while others break, and when the dust settles, it is their work that remains, their impact, their truth. So walk forward, not louder, but deeper. Let the world chase its noise, you chase your calling. And remember, when it's all said and done, history favors not the noisiest, but the most rooted. Not the ones who rushed, but the ones who endured. Not the ones who spoke endlessly, but the ones who built quietly and finished strong. Let your life be that kind of voice, the one that never needed to shout, because its strength was always heard. You were never meant to explain your worth to those who couldn't see it. You were never meant to defend your soul's blueprint to those who'd never built one of their own. And you were never meant to dilute your power just to feel understood. Power isn't given, it's claimed. Quietly, strategically, through sacrifice, through discipline, through the refusal to crumble under pressure. The truth is, most people never lose because they lack talent. They lose because they gave too much of their mind away. They traded clarity for comfort. They spoke when they should have waited, and in doing so, they scattered their fire into the hands of the unworthy. But not you. Not anymore. From this day forward, your vision is sacred. Your mind is guarded. Your silence is not weakness, it is warfare. Every time you choose to act instead of react, to move instead of prove, to protect instead of perform, you become the anchor in a storm. You rise beyond noise and into power. You stop chasing eyes and start building outcomes, because outcomes don't lie, results don't beg to be seen, and legacy, real legacy, isn't carved by those who were loud, it's carved by those who never stopped showing up. Napoleon Hill said it best. Self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. If you don't control what you think, you can't control what you do. That's the final truth. You don't need louder words. You need deeper roots. You don't need more followers. You need more focus. Protect your flame, guard your mission, and never again apologize for the power you built in silence. The world will always test the loud, but it bows to the unshakable.